This is Bruce Friedman of Adult Site Broker, and welcome to Adult Site Broker Talk, where every week we interview one of the movers and shakers of the adult industry, and we give you a tip on buying and selling websites. This week we'll be talking to adult industry writer Ralph Grecco. Adult Site Broker is proud to announce ASB Cash, the first affiliate program for an adult website brokerage. With ASB Cash, you'll have the chance to earn as much as 20% of our broker commission referring sellers and buyers to us at Adult Site Broker. Check our website at asbcash.com for more details. Now let's feature our property of the week that's for sale at Adult Site Broker. We're offering a rapidly growing hair shaving site. This site shows women getting their head shaved. It does not show explicit content, so it is much easier to promote than most adult sites. The site creates an environment for their customers where they feel like they're getting invited to the party of their hair fetish dreams. They love using slogans like, "Come join the party." There's a sister site that is a unique method of hosting their videos in a discreet manner for their customers. The site is fueled by redirects. This is essentially the brains of the whole operation. It handles the billing and rebilling, user information, and video displays. There's also a separate forum and a download store that did $5,000 in sale the first month alone. There is no paid advertising. They go directly to their customers with targeted SEO, YouTube videos, and social media. The community for this niche is very loyal, and the members will help any way they can to see sites like this grow. They'll donate. Some will even do work for the site for free. This site has a lot of room to grow with a little more time and investment. There's a mailing list of well over 1,100. Models' hair can be sold for thousands of extra dollars. There are trained producers for these shoots who would be happy to stay on after the sale. This great site is available for only $480,000. Now time for this week's interview. My guest today on Adult Site Broker Talk is adult industry writer Ralph Grecco. Ralph, thanks for being with us today on Adult Site Broker Talk.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Great to have you. Now, Ralph is a professional writer of blogs, columns, reviews, interviews, fiction, poetry, let me get my breath, songs, SEO copy, and one-act plays for both mainstream and adult clients. Now, Ralph's short fiction, both erotic and mainstream poetry, and essays have been published in 8 countries, in major market magazines and small press, and various anthologies and single-author short story collections. Ralph's one-act plays have been published in a complete collection as they've been produced across the U.S. His self-penned, self-produced Salacious Songs and Dirty Words theater show have been performed off-Broadway in New York City. I love that. I love that name. Now, Ralph is also an ASCAP licensed songwriter and recording artist, and he teaches classes across the U.S. at kink conventions. Ralph just launched a music site, Ralph Grecco, that's spelled Greco, music.com. And he has a podcast called Licking Non-Vanilla. I love it. Now, Ralph, you're a professional writer of songs, fiction, web, copy, and plays, so a wide range of material. Do you have a favorite type of writing among all the stuff you do?
Oh, yeah, I don't. It's a tough one. It comes by assignment, or I say this all the time. I say I'm a hack, basically. The work comes in. I don't wait for the muse to come tickling my balls. I'm going to do it when the work comes in. But I would say, out of all the things I write, the thing that has my heart the most is the songwriting. But that's something I do mostly for myself. I'm not usually commissioned to do that for anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why is that?
I was in the game, the music business for a while when I was younger and could fit into spandex pants, and now that I'm older, I don't pursue it in the same way. I'm still a professional musician and I'm still pursuing it professionally, but the music business has changed greatly, so I don't pursue it in the same way, and it has more of my it's more I hate to use this word, but it's more of the art for me than anything else. That's what it is.
Yeah, I think musicians who do other things, that's always going to be their first love. And I probably could have fit into spandex pants too, but I would have looked terrible. Why is songwriting your favorite type of writing?
That's the purest expression, I think, from what's in my head and my marrow. It seems to come out directly. I just get my acoustic guitar and I go. And also, if I want to get that out or have it heard or performed or whatever, I can. It's usually more direct, and I can see the reaction immediate from somebody who's listening, as opposed to you write a short story. I don't get to experience the people reading the short story to see what they feel. Yeah. Only if somebody writes me back and tells me if they liked it or not. So I think it's probably just the immediacy of what it is with the songwriting.
Yeah. Next time we'll have your guitar on. Yeah. Now, maybe we need a new theme song. Now, absolutely. How did you get into erotic writing in the first place?
Well, I've always been a writer, and I've been trying to publish for a while. What happened was, back in the day, and there was, I guess this is like, I'm thinking mid to late 80s. I had a friend who was going to do some voiceover work for a guy who ran a 800 and 900 number call-in service. Mm-hmm. And this, before he had it all on servers, but it was not on the computer. It was you just call in, and some girl would be reading a sexy story. Mm-hmm. And when we went over to his apartment, because she said, "Well, come with me. I'm not sure if this guy's on the up, so come with me just to make sure." So I went with this girl and her friend, and we met this couple, and they were really great people. And as we were there, she was reading some of the stories and had me read some stuff in the stories, some dialogue. Mm-hmm. And somewhere along the way, he said, we got to talking about it if he needed a writer. And I said, I've been thinking about erotica for a while. I'd love to get into this. So I started penning 800 and 900 pre-recorded phone sex scripts. And that's how it started. Yeah, it was really fun. It was back in the day when you could do that kind of thing. It's not like that anymore, but it was a lot of fun, actually. And a good way to get my feet wet,
Well, I mean, besides, ooh, baby, I'm getting wet. I mean, what,
right. Well, with scenarios, you set up a scenario,
right?
And the 800 number, the 900 number was more explicit. The 800 number wasn't. So there were certain specific rules to follow, which was a good challenge for a writer because you can only write a certain parameter. And there was a lot of you had to get to the meat of the subject, set it up, and get to the heat.
Was that the meat of the subject? Was that a pun?
Oh, yeah, I guess you can say that. But so you get to this, slot A equals into slot B stuff quickly. But you had to, and it was typical scenarios. A principal. I didn't know that I'm sorry that I was tardy 3 times this week to school. That kind of thing. It was a lot of women frolicking and
you're gonna have to punish me.
Exactly, but it was a hoot and a half, and the girl I went with was a good friend, so she was fun watching her read this stuff. And then the next time I came back, I gave him a couple scripts, and he bought them, and I was on my way.
That's great.
Yeah, it was real fun.
Now, what kind of erotic writing are you doing these days?
Well, the fiction I do is pretty much niche based around BDSM, and spanking kind of stuff, and. But I do a lot of cross-genre. I like to get satire and science fiction and erotica in when I can, all in one story. And that's what, if you would ask me my favorite type of fiction writing, that's my favorite type. When I can mix satire and either some sort of fantasy or science fiction element with erotica. That to me is really a hoot and a half. I really like that a lot.
Okay. Now, it seems like everybody these days has a podcast, even me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there you go.
What do you do to make sure your podcast is unique and worth listening to?
That's a real good question, and I'm sure you search for the same thing. Well, I did a podcast with a fellow writer, M. Christian, and he's somebody I've known for a long time, a fellow erotica writer, and he's also a guy that I teach classes. When we had kink conventions at one point, we were teaching our classes there. And anyway, so we get on the podcast, and I try not to. We were initially going to make it about erotica writing, but then we realized that's maybe it's a little too tight. I don't know if many people are going to tune in, but I don't know how many people were. So we try to keep it as inclusive as possible and as interesting. But I feel you have to kind of take it away from yourself as much as possible and keep it relatable to the outside. Think about the audience. I'm always thinking, because I'm a performer, I'm always thinking about the audience. I'm always thinking about somebody coming, sitting in a chair and never heard this song before. I have to engage them. Yeah. Same with the podcast. I'm thinking, these people don't know me. And like you just said, there's tons of podcasts out there. So I have to be engaging and interesting and not so, this is just about me. This is just about what I'm doing. And a lot of podcasts I hear are the guy gets on or the girl gets on and they're talking about their little minutia, their little world. And I don't know how interesting that is, to tell you the truth. And also, we try to get on as many guests as we can.
Yeah. The answer is it's not very interesting, and unless you're a celebrity, talking about minutia isn't really going to get you very far.
I agree with you 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
But the world we live in is we're used to tweeting and twatting and posting about ourselves all the time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do. Yeah. And I don't, because I'm such an evolved human being, but that's a different story. But what happens is that becomes this kind of this egocentric view of the world, that we have something to say that's so important that somebody's just got to come onto our podcast to listen to us because we're such a hoot and a half. But like you just said, unless you're a celebrity, I don't think it's all that interesting. So you better make it damn interesting to somebody and work hard to make it interesting, as you know, that's what you do.
Yeah, well, I mean, my philosophy on it is I'm going to bring people on that are going to be interesting, like yourself, to other people in our industry. Right. And the key is to bring people from all aspects of the industry, plus offer something to them about what we do and give them free information, which we end our podcast with tips on buying and selling websites. So if they want to buy and sell their own websites, go for it, man. Right. But that's the best way. That's the best way is to give it away for free.
Right. Yeah, I think there's got to be a reason they're tuning in staying, and not only tuning in, but staying with you.
Yeah.
Not staying with the whole episode as much as coming back next week to listen again or whatever you're going to be. So but that the onus is on. I think that's the thing. I think the performer and or the podcaster or whoever, the onus is on us to deliver 100%, and we can't ever forget that because that's really important.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Now, you also teach at kink conventions. What do you teach, and what's that like? Well, when they had them.
Yeah. Well, actually, we did. Chris and I, our favorite class to do there was a writing course. So we did an erotica writing course, which was a hoot and a half. It really was a lot of fun. We did all various different. A lot of our classes are centered around a lot of softcore, play and fun stuff, and nothing. We didn't do anything hardcore. Although those kink conventions can run from the novice all the way up. And they usually do. They have a wide variety of people at them. But it was a lot of fun, and Chris and I got to travel across the country, and because Chris lives he lives in Oregon, so I live in New Jersey. So we would meet at certain like Vegas or St. Louis, and we met a lot of great people. We got to hawk our books a little bit and get known, and it was really a lot of fun. I met some of the best people ever at those conventions because those are people who were there for a weekend to have a great time, let themselves have a little fun. But nobody's taking anything so serious, and everybody's real respectful and really it was just and we get to travel to cool places. Go to Vegas for free. So we're having a great time. I have a client in Vegas too, so it was good to always go there and touch base and say hi. So that kind of stuff was wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I used to think Vegas was cool until I went there for about the 85th time, and then I was like, this isn't cool anymore.
Yeah, well, and I'm interested. I think we all are in some way to see what happens now.
Yeah,
how things are going to return. And
sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, I
sure.
think we're all interested about that across the board. I try not to get my mind so much on any of that stuff, but
Yeah.
it's obvious, that there's going to be some interesting tweaks and
Hmm.
shifts of the way we do things. So
Yeah, I mean, living out here in Asia, I feel really bad for my brothers and sisters in America and other countries that have been hit so hard by COVID. I happen to live in the country that has been affected maybe the least in the entire world and has maybe done the best job of dealing with it. So I consider myself extremely fortunate. Plus, we're not overrun by tourists. There's no tourists. So
right,
while I feel bad for the people who work in the tourism industry, it's like heaven right now.
yeah, true, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely. I constantly, people were using that term, the new normal, and I say there's nothing
Mm,
normal about anything that's happening.
no,
Nothing normal at all. And I don't think
no,
anything good is coming from it either, to tell you
no,
the truth. But that's,
no. The only good things that are coming out of it, I think, are what's happening with the environment.
mhm.
Is that the environment isn't being as damaged as it normally would at this
Oh yeah, well,
point.
people aren't out in it, right? Yeah,
Correct.
absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah, right,
You don't have as many airplanes in the air. You don't
right,
have as many cars moving around.
right.
You don't. Yeah, I mean, it's not as many boats.
Yeah,
Not as many cruise ships. So the things that are
exactly.
probably the most damaging to the environment are being taken away for the time being. But no, I don't.
Hmm.
I don't think the word normal is ever going to be what we consider normal again.
Yeah,
I can't see it. But I'm sure there will be some good for it as well. Um,
yeah.
so what are in your view, what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about those of us who work in the adult field?
One of the things is that dirty stuff is on our mind constantly. Now, it's on my mind constantly
Yeah, I was
throughout.
going to say,
Um,
why isn't that true?
yeah, it is true, but I don't. We're functioning. We're going around the day. Going to the grocery store and petting our animals and
Hmm.
having dinner with our folks, and
Hmm.
like we're just like anybody else. Because I say this all the time. I live in I live on a dead end street, a suburban street. If I walk out of my door and look at the many neighbors' houses, I there's a multitude of things going on behind those windows.
Hmm.
Things that I probably couldn't even write as good as what's going on behind those windows, as far as interesting sexual maneuvers and kinks, right? So we're all involved some way in some sort of.
Maybe you should knock on more doors.
Well, what it is, I know my neighbors anyway, so I know what's going on. But it's just funny to think that the first reaction is, oh, you write that stuff. And I'm like, well, first of all, everybody's thinking this stuff anyway. Everybody's engaged in their own little head, what they
Yep.
want and what they do and how they get it and all that kind of stuff. And when
Sure.
I just happen to be more in the world of it. And also, what's that the saying about the cobbler's kids are not shod? So, because you're in the business, you're not interested in it, in
Mm,
sex in a normal way. And that's not true. I just have to
no.
say my libido's no different or more or less than just because I write this stuff all the time.
Hmm.
I don't think it lessens my libido. So I think that, but we're just normal people like everybody else. We really are.
Hmm.
We're no different than anybody. We're just doing a job. Just happen to be, this is the job we do.
This is how we make money. Yeah,
That's it, man.
I've got to say though, I don't look at porn the way I used to. Not that I really spent much time looking at porn, but now it's kind of like you look at it as an insider, and you look at it like, okay, with more of a critical eye, and it's a business. When I had a pay site, I started to get bored at looking at women's bodies, and I
Hmm.
thought, man, that would never happen.
Well, yeah, the guy, the ecological thing. But I don't know. I think that I only ever watch anything salacious when I have to review it or write for it in some way. I don't. I've never been a devotee of porn, and I've never even been interested in it in any kind of level. So
Hmm.
the only time I watch it is to engage in it some way with the writing.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so my viewpoint on it has always been oh yeah, it's whatever it is, but I don't know if it's. I don't know if I would be any more interested or any less interested in it, if I wasn't in the middle of it,
So,
writing it. And,
mhm. So you do reviews. How do you like that?
it's fun, I mean, what I try to do? I try to, and that's funny you say that word too, because I really do consider myself a reviewer and not a critic. And I think distinction is important because
Yep.
the people who make music or make a movie or make any piece of thing that they're working on, whatever, and even if it's whatever it is, I always figure let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They went out there and they tried to make it, and whether you like it or not. So I try not to be I try not to be a critic as much as a reviewer, and give enough in the review that if you may come to it or not, but let you make your own mind about it, and not try to be so hypercritical about it. And I can be that way, like anybody else. Things set me off really well or not, but I just try not to be a critic because there's just so much criticism of work. And I think if you went out there and you tried to do the work, like the last thing you need is somebody criticizing it.
Yeah.
So I try to be gentle and just review it, honestly review it, and say this is what it reminds me of. This is what you may like about it, and this is that's as far as I go.
Are you reviewing? I can talk. Are you reviewing sites and also clips and movies?
Yeah, I do both. A little bit, and I review toys. I get the toy in and review it a little bit and see if it works and the way it works. Yeah, that's fun because you get to use it. You get to have the toy. And there's a sameness to certain things.
Sure.
Especially if you get into reviewing and like niche content.
Yep.
It's going to be all femdom, for instance. It's going to have it's like the same patois.
Yep.
But you kind of you just kind of give it find the nuances and stuff. But I enjoy that because I know somebody put their time and energy into it, and I think they deserve at least a little bit of my attention, enough of my attention if I'm going to review it, where I could be nice about it and just critical and not critical.
Yeah, no, I get it, and that's a good thing because I've been both reviewed and criticized in some of my life's work.
Exactly. And I mean, it's hard enough it is to even put it out there, and get it done and put it out there.
Sure.
And I don't know if we need to knock as much as. Well, I don't think we need the false praise, but we also don't need a jab. Who needs it? Just doesn't do anything.
Absolutely. What review sites are you working with?
I was writing. This was interesting, and I write for Hot Movies. And what's fun about Hot Movies is they commission me to write essays, less about the review of the movies, but more an essay about a certain subject.
Nice.
And then within that essay, I would reference their movies. So they had they bought a whole spate of spanking movies. So they wanted like some spanking 101 essays, tutorials. So I wrote that, and then I would grab their certain titles so they could put them in there, for SEO purposes. So you would do keyword searching. So I was writing for them, and that was a lot. I wrote some toy reviews for a site called Tracy's Dog, which is actually an Asian site. And so they sent me out some really wonderful toys. I mean, well made. And and I've worked for Adam and Eve to do some stuff, and I've worked for Vivid. Back in the day, Vivid and Wicked were putting out a lot of DVDs at one point. They don't so much anymore.
Yeah.
But they have their content. So
cool.
And then so kind of like whatever comes up, whatever somebody needs, I can kind of be plugged into it and figure it out.
Well, keep that in mind. Now, what's been the good and bad about the digital revolution as it relates to the adult industry and to your work?
Well, the one thing is this kind of a thing, right? I mean, I never would have been able to connect with people this way, over a podcast and or have my books, my ebooks read or seen. Years ago, I'd have to, produce the book and print the book and have boxes of them in my basement. And now I don't have to worry about this stuff. So the digital revolution, the facility and the convenience is just fantastic,
Yep.
And the connectivity. But, at the same time, there is a lessening of quality, because we're going for convenience sometimes before we worry about an obsolescence. There's built-in obsolescence in things with the digital world. And then, we've all experienced this. There's a great pirating problem. Content is being stolen and
Sure.
put up other places, and we have, this for sure. We've
Sure.
seen that come in and destroy, cut a great big, pretty much a big negative swatch through the industry in a lot of ways, and a lot of people ran for cover. But then again, we say this all the time. If you can make a better mousetrap, and we've seen people who do, then you could make it. I've worked with Neil at Clips for Sale for a while,
Yeah.
and he's learned how to circumvent that digital thing where we're taking content and putting it somewhere else. He said, well, people want lesser amount of time and content. Let's just make a site that people can load, the provider can load on here. So,
oh yeah, boy, has he done well.
Oh, and he's done, and I know him a little bit. I've had him on my podcast, and he's a great guy, and he's very, very transparent, very open. This is what I did. You want to come on? You got content? There's what we do. And so he built a better mousetrap, seeing that the digital world was opening up.
Sure.
So, I guess you know as well as I do, you can't stop progress. So you just either have to find your way in there and do the things and take to the things that work for you, and the things that don't, you don't get involved with. And I'm like that, like anybody else.
Sure. Now, do you have a set routine as a freelance writer? Maybe you can describe a typical day for me.
Okay. Well, I get up, and I have to negotiate between whatever two buxom lasses have slept, sandwiched me at the night. So I got to figure out, that's so it's one of, I have to kiss the both on the forehead, because you never want to get out of the bed and make them feel bad.
No, not at all.
Instead of leaving the bed, it's cold now. I feel terrible.
Yes.
So that's the first thing. Then I hit I hit the crack pipe for a while and do some blow, and then I get up in the morning, have some coffee, and it's funny, I can write right out of bed. I can get up sometimes.
Well, after the crack and the blow, I would think you could.
You're good, right? You're good, right? Of course. But it's funny. Usually, something I get ideas like just as that wakefulness state, just as I'm getting up, but I'm real good hitting the ground running in the morning. I'm real good at sitting down, and I usually have 4 or 5 different things on my desktop at a time that I need to get to, and I could usually hit the ground running and plow through coffee and a little bit of breakfast and just go until sometime in the early afternoon, when hunger sets in enough that I go, oh, maybe I should stop and go get something to eat or take a walk. But I'm pretty good mainly through the morning into the early afternoon. And then, like, if I have the podcast to do, or if I have some song stuff to do, that's usually when I break to do that, like around lunchtime, So, but I usually hit the ground running writing very early in the morning and just go.
Now, what have been a couple of your favorite examples of your work?
Well, okay, I just put out a new book that I put out with Pink Flamingo, which is a company I've never worked with before, called the name of that book is No Whip, No Problem. And that's
I'm sorry. What's it called?
Okay, it's called No Whip, No Problem. And it's a short story collection, and that's one of it's my most recent work, and also one of my more favorite ones. I'm trying to think what else is there's in the erotica field. There's a lot of stuff out there. I tend to like the blogs that I write for Licking Non-Vanilla. On the Licking Non-Vanilla site, I write about 2 blogs a week, and they're pithy and fun. I have another column called The Sex Files, which is on a site in New York and LA, and that's fun. So, and then I have clients I write for, and I do a lot of ghostwriting, non-adult related ghostwriting. I write bios and insurance how-tos and all that kind of stuff, and that's ghostwriting that I don't nobody knows that I'm doing that writing. But those books came out. Those books came out. And that's mainstream. That has nothing to do with the adult world. And that's a lot of fun because it's totally different,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, how is your real life different or the same from your work?
Well, in the erotica, a lot of, well, I don't know. I guess I'll be as discreet as possible. I have had a rich, fun, heterosexual existence
Mm-hmm.
as younger. And so a lot of what I write about is either the fiction is either from those experiences or amalgamations of those experiences or fantasy from those whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
I had a pretty good run because I was in a band in my 20s and I went to a school that 4 girls to every guy. So,
Ooh.
things were good back in the day. So I was a bit of I had some good times. So I would say nowadays my life is a little bit calmer. I'm older and I like to think my sexual life is a little more nuanced now.
Mm-hmm.
But, back in the day, it was like everybody's. We're all full of piss and vinegar back in the day. But nowadays, and it's interesting. I was just thinking this. You asked this question. The fiction is more nuanced now because my life in general is more nuanced. So I think the art art reflects the fiction, or the fiction reflects art, or whatever it is. I think that's true and certainly in my case.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Now, yeah, you mentioned when we were talking before we went on that you live in New Jersey. You're from New Jersey. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your upbringing and that led you to where you are today?
My upbringing is more normal than you could possibly believe. I have a younger sister. My folks are still alive. They're in their 80s
Good.
and they're still kicking.
Good.
It's an Italian American household in North, and I grew up on a suburban street where everybody knew everybody. All the kids were in and out of each other's houses, and it was my Halloween time and street stickball. And I mean, my growing up was idyllic. It was unbelievably wonderful, and my family is fantastic, and I get along with everybody. Everybody gets along with everybody else. So I was allowed a lot of freedoms, and I was allowed to grow in my quote unquote art, and explore the things that were interesting to me. And it's been nothing but nurturing. So it's unconditional love. I've never known anything else in my life, and it's so I have a confidence level. Not I don't think I have I do have a relatively solid ego, but I have a confidence level from being so having such good love in my life that I've been able to explore things, and sometimes things don't work out, but for the most part, have been able to explore things and have the freedoms to land to do the work I do and not feel ashamed or embarrassed by it, and and just try to treat people nice. And that's about it, and just keep moving forward. That's about all.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
I've been making inroads now to get to get my music done. It's been a long road to get to that point. So that's kind of what's most on my mind. I mean, I'm doing the writing to make money and keep myself from beer and Skittles. But I don't drink. I don't eat Skittles. But I've been trying to. But right now, I would say in the foreseeable future, I'm trying best I can to put a lot of my energy into getting the music done, whether recorded, remastered, or mixed, or whatever I have to do. But that's kind of what's most on my mind right now, and that's where I see myself in the next 5 years working the writing always, but working the music, more having a future and a goal set for that.
Okay. Now, what do you see happening in your immediate future? Do you have any work that you're currently finishing?
Yeah, I'm trying to get a book done, a couple books done. There's a memoir I'm writing. It's an erotic memoir, and I'll probably publish that under a pseudonym, which will be the first time I do that. I have also I write with a buddy, an illustrator. I write a children's series of books, so which that published, and then I have another book, music book. I'm getting in the middle of writing, and so I have a couple of things that are like. Right, I'm looking at the desktop right now. They're just on the desktop always, and they're just kind of looking right at me. And you got to finish this. You got to finish this. So those are the things that are immediate. If I can get those things done within the next couple months, into the summer, I'll feel like I've gotten over a hump somewhere, and then whatever other work comes in.
You're pretty typical of the creative types that I know. Do you ever feel like you try to take on too much?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and I don't have. I don't think I have ADD or BLT or ELP, whatever it is. I don't think I have any of that. I think what I do have is I grow bored with one thing. I'm in the middle of one project, and I'm like, let me go over there for a little while and do that, and then let me pick up the guitar and do that. So, and I'm not so good at time management, so I have to really work at that. But when a job comes in immediately, I'll tackle that. I'm very good with emails, getting right back to people, because I have to be. That's the only way I can function, is to get right on stuff. So I'm pretty good with getting the job done. It's just that the jobs that I need to get done for myself, my books that are laying out there and stuff, they'll take a while, because I do jump from one thing to another. So I don't know if that's a creative mentality as much as it's just the way I have 4 or 5 folders that are open all the time, So
I think it's the creative mentality, and I'm kind of the same way. So I completely understand that there's always a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, right. You're running you do the podcast, you're doing this, and then somebody's contacting you through your business to do this, and you got to write a letter to this person, and there's all that stuff going on. But I think that keeps me at least awake. Because I think, I'm not sure, because I always think, well, maybe if I just worked on that one book and nothing else, I'd get that book done. And it's probably true, but I just can't concentrate that way,
Yeah, I understand. I have like I said, I got lots of projects that are that are partially done, so I get it. Of course, some of that is development, but anyway, that's another story altogether. You have more control over everything, and the things I do are always somewhat controlled by others getting them done. Yeah. Other than the adult work you do, who else do you work for?
I work for a company called Arbor Books, and Arbor puts together me as the ghostwriter. Somebody will come to them and say, "Look, I want to write a book about my life," or "I was in the dental business for 10 years. I want to write about that," or whatever. So they come to Arbor and hire me as a ghostwriter. And one of my biggest clients is a latex manufacturer called Matrix Designs, and I write for her. And that's a lot of fun, because it's a little bit naughty, but Dawn works on movies, and she works on a whole bunch of stuff. So she works with Lady Gaga and all these people so she started in the kind of the fetish field, kind of went around the back door, and kind of now doing latex and design differently. I used to work for a latex magazine, fashion magazine called Von Gutenberg. It's not in existence anymore. He was an offshoot of Marquee magazine, which is a very famous one. Anyway, and there's a couple other people that I write for on a regular basis who are not mainstream or not adult in any kind of way. They're happen to be like a naturopath I work for, in a legal company. So there's a lot of that type of stuff. I don't do any pharma or grant writing. Those are 2 things I don't do. That takes specific writing, which I don't have a talent for. And other than that, so really, I always say I'm in the best sense of the word, I'm a hack. You come to me, you have a job to do, and I'm down for writing. That's basically how I look at it.
A hack in a nice way. Now, have you ever gotten a project that's been proposed to you where you've gone, no, I won't do that?
The only time that's happened is when something's come across, and I know from the background of somebody told me something, or I learned from another source that the person whose project it is, or their company, is problematic. In ways that I consider them problematic, and somebody else may not. I mean, like, in other words, they may not ever get back to you with emails. You have questions. Oh, they'll never get back to you. Well, that doesn't help me at all, because I have questions. I like to keep in constant contact with my clients.
Yep.
And because they can get me anytime they want. I'm available from email anytime.
Yes.
So some people, they're not so communicative. Well, that's not going to help me. And then I've been in the middle of projects where I'm like, a couple weeks in or a month in, I'm like, we're just not connecting.
We're not compatible, yeah.
We're not compatible, and that's fine, because I always say no harm, no foul. I'm
Right.
fine with that.
Right.
Because I don't want to spin my wheels or have you spin your wheels over trying to make that square peg fit that round hole. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I've been involved in a couple of those situations.
Sure.
And that's fine. That's fine. Both mainstream and adult. That's fine.
So nobody's ever asked you to write something that you just didn't, for whatever reason, want to write?
Nothing's coming to mind.
Okay.
Nothing comes to mind at the moment.
Just curious.
Yeah, nothing really.
Okay. Now, if somebody's interested in either coming on your podcast or just in contacting you in general, how can they find you?
They can find me by writing my email, which would be, I'll spell it. It's RalphieDA writer. So it's Ralphie the writer at gmail.com. And then they could also go to the Licking Non-Vanilla page, which is lickingnonvanilla.com. And that's the podcast. And then, like you said at the outset, too, you could find me at the music page, which is ralphgreccomusic.com. So that's the three best ways to find me. I don't have a lot of social media presence. That's just a moral thing on my part. But, so that's the best way to find me.
The writer, so New Jersey.
Ralphie the writer at gmail.com. Right?
Yo,
I'm Ralphie the writer. Come over, I'll help you out. We'll have a little calamari, we'll hang out. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Forget about it. Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry about it. We'll have a good time. What's forget about it mean? Sometimes it just means forget about it.
Exactly. Sometimes it means forget about it. Hey, Ralph, I'd like to thank you for being our guest today on Adult Site Broker Talk. And I hope we'll get a chance to do it again real soon. Maybe when your book comes out.
I love it. And you be well. I hope everybody listening stays well and their families are well, and we'll get through this. And thank you for having me on. This was wonderful.
Fantastic, Ralph. My broker tip today is part 4 of what to do to make your site more valuable for when you decide to sell it later. Trademark your site. Having a trademark instantly protects your brand and makes your site more valuable when it comes time to sell it later. Trademarking your site will cost an average of about $1,500, but should be more than worth the investment when it comes time to sell it. Show buyers ways you feel the site can make more money in the future. This includes showing them future plans you may have, traffic trends, as well as sales trends. And if things are growing and you can show them how to grow it more, they're more likely to be willing to pay more for the site. Do something unique with your site. If you have competitors, figure a way to do it better. Be different in some distinguishable way that makes your site better. Your members will notice and spend more money with you. Make your site a place that people want to visit, not just to buy things or view porn. Be creative, not just one of the many. Keep thinking outside the box and make positive changes to your site. Think like a buyer when planning or updating your site. Don't think like a tech. Think like the consumer. We'll talk about this subject more next week. And next week, we'll be talking to my friend Natalie Pannon of Mojo Host. And that's it for this week's Adult Site Broker Talk. I'd once again like to thank my guest, Ralph Grecco. Talk to you again next week on Adult Site Broker Talk. I'm Bruce Friedman.